These are 10 bold predictions for the rest of the NBA season, starting with how the Milwaukee Bucks will finish as a top 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. After a horrific 2-8 start, things weren't looking very good in Milwaukee, as their defense was terrible, especially in transition, and their offense wasn't looking anywhere near as good as advertised. The Bucks season has been a tale of two parts so far, with the first 10 games looking straight up down bad to the last 16 games where they're looking like title contenders. In the first half of the season, they simply weren't making their 3-point shots at a high enough rate, as they had that one game against Memphis where they shot about 21% from beyond the arc in a blowout loss. Over this period of time, the team hadn't yet gotten accustomed to their new defensive system, leading to lots of bad defensive plays with poor switches and rotations. Dame and Giannis were playing just fine, however, the rest of the role players were not chipping in and pulling their own weight, as the team ultimately wasn't winning games. But since then, Milwaukee have turned it around, improving on all of those areas. First of all, they're now hitting their 3-pointers at an elite rate, as over the last 15 games, they've been making their threes at a deadly mark of 41%, which nearly leads the NBA. Their defense has also improved, as they've gotten used to their new system, holding teams to just 109.3 points in that stretch, which right now would be good enough to rank them as the 7th best defense in the NBA. We saw this firsthand in the NBA Cup victory over the Oklahoma City Thunder, where they held SGA to just 21 points on 24 shots. Two big reasons for that defensive resurgence was first, the team figuring out that new system, getting the switches down pat, and Giannis returning to his defensive player of the year level defense. But those aren't the only reasons, as some of the youngsters off the bench deserve a lot of credit for Milwaukee finding themselves defensively. I've really been impressed with the level of defense from Andre Jackson Jr. and AJ Green so far this season. And for Jackson Jr., his level of play on that side of the ball was good enough to put him in the starting lineup. Over the first 7 games of the season, the Bucks rolled with Gary Trent Jr. at the starting 2. But after a rough shooting performance, and the Bucks clearly missing that athletic presence in the starting 5, they made the adjustment. Since they put Andre Jackson Jr. into the starting lineup, the Bucks have gone 13-5, and his smart defensive plays, high athleticism, and bold defense have all been huge contributing factors. However, in a recent video I made on this Bucks team, I had a commenter not happy about me not mentioning AJ Green, so let's mention him. AJ Green is an absolute sniper when it comes to 3-point shooting, and there's no doubting the fact that he's one of the NBA's best catch-and-shoot shooters. However, nobody could have ever expected him to be as good of a defender as he is. He's not the most athletic presence, but he's not going to let you get many open looks, as he fights incredibly hard on the defensive side of the ball. Not only have I been really impressed with his on-ball defense, but also how great he is at navigating screens. Unlike other catch-and-shoot shooters in the NBA, AJ Green has the frame to be able to fight through picks and still contest shots. To have this guy coming off the bench, hustling his heart out on both sides of the ball, shooting an incredible 48% from downtown on 5.2 attempts per game is just so valuable, and it's a huge part to the Bucks' success so far this season. I believe that down the track, he could very well end up being the starting 2 guard, but right now they need that added athleticism that Jackson Jr. brings to the team. But the reason I believe they're going to continue to climb the standings is because of Giannis Antetokounmpo. Giannis has been on a tear this season, and his last 4 games have been outstanding, putting up 32 points, 16 rebounds, 6 assists, and 4 blocks on 62% shooting, leading the Bucks to a 4-0 record in that time. When we talk about MVP, I feel like many people forget that offense is just 50% of what basketball is. When it comes to Giannis versus Jokic for the MVP, the argument for Giannis is simple. If Giannis is a bare minimum 75% of an offensive player that Jokic is, that's fine, because Giannis is simply on a different stratosphere when it comes to defense. Not only is he one of the best defenders in the NBA, but he's usually good enough to win the Defensive Player of the Year every season, along with him actually being a former Defensive Player of the Year winner, where he also won the MVP in the same season. When we look back at those years where Giannis did win the the MVP, he was averaging far worse numbers than he is now. I feel like the NBA needs to get over its voter fatigue when it comes to Giannis, as they're missing out on one of the greatest peaks the NBA has ever seen. So with all these improvements, Giannis having an MVP caliber season, and the young guys stepping up, I believe Milwaukee have what it takes to push for a top 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. Now, let's move on to my second bold prediction, and that's how the Denver Nuggets are going to make a blockbuster trade for Zach LaVine. Now, this is a bold predictions video, so for no means am I telling you that this is a guaranteed deal, but what I'm saying is it's my bold prediction. I believe Denver would likely send out a trade package centered around Michael Porter Jr. in order to bring Zach in. And before you guys start saying Denver would never do this, hear me out. Denver need more shot creation, plain and simple. Jamal Murray has been incredibly inconsistent this season and simply doesn't look like a number 2 option on a championship team anymore. MPJ has been a good shooter, but it's a bit of an adventure when he puts the ball on the deck, and he hasn't proven to be very good in the pick and roll situation with Jokic, leaving a lot to be desired. Even though Russell Westbrook has helped them with their paint pressure, they also could be better in that area. However, Zach LaVine would instantly fill some of these holes, giving them a quality shot creator off the bounce, a solid rim attacker, and another guy who could make use of a Jokic pick and roll. Even though he's far from being an elite playmaker, he's shown an ability to be able to run pick and rolls with Nikola Vucevic, as Jokic is only going to make his life easier in a pick and roll. On the season, LaVine is giving Chicago 21.7 points, 4.4 rebounds, and 4.2 assists on 50% shooting as their number 1 guy. His presence would give Denver a reliable second option, putting less weight on the shoulders of Jamal Murray to enable them to rest him some games without the team suffering as a result. Now, for his lack of defense, it's not like Michael Porter Jr. is an elite defensive player, and I think people are forgetting that Denver still have Westbrook and Gordon, who are good enough to hold their own against the guard and the forward respectively. This trade would see Denver going all in on trying to become the best offense in the NBA while still having a middle-of-the-road defense, which is the exact formula they won the championship with back in the 2023 season. Yes, I've seen the backlash on this move online and how people aren't really that big of a fan of it, but I do believe this move could put them back in the top 3 and back into the status of an undisputed title contender. Now, my third bold prediction is that I believe the Oklahoma City Thunder will take the next step this season. Last year, the Oklahoma City Thunder became the youngest 1 seed in the history of the league and pushed the eventual Western Conference champion Dallas Mavericks to a 6-game series. With the additions of Alex Caruso and Isaiah Hartenstein, along with the added experience of a postseason run, I believe this young core is ready to take the next step. Right now, the Thunder are playing unbelievable basketball, currently holding down the 1 seed in the West with a 21-5 record. Their net rating is currently the 3rd best by any team in league history, only behind the 1997 and 96 Chicago Bulls, outscoring their opponents by 11.9 points per game. This is due to their mix of elite defense and offense, both ranking in the top 10, with their defense in particular being league best, holding teams to just 103.7 points per game. What makes this even more absurd is how they are yet to play a single fully healthy game this season due to the early injury to Hartenstein and the hip injury to Chet Holmgren. And even in the stretch where they were missing both big men, they were still able to win games with the 6'6" Jalen Williams playing center. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is one of the best isolation scorers in the NBA, giving the Thunder a consistent 30.3 points per game on 51% shooting. Shai is able to be so consistent because he's the best paint scorer for a guard in the league, while he also gets to the free throw line at a great rate, attempting 8.2 free throws per game. Then to add upon his elite play, the Thunder have seen leaps from many important role players, such as Jalen Williams, Cason Wallace, and the two-way player AJ Mitchell. With the experience of a postseason run now under their belts, along with some excellent acquisitions, and potentially a move at the deadline to bolster a lack of elite three-point shooting, I'd be willing to bet that the Thunder make the conference finals and potentially even win it, as they take their next step towards winning a championship. My fourth bold prediction for the rest of the NBA season is how I believe the Dallas Mavericks are going to finish top 3 out in the West. West. Although their record doesn't quite show it, I believe that the numbers point to a better team than their record displays. Dallas have the ability to bolster a top 10 defense and offense when fully healthy, and I believe their acquisitions to further improve the bench depth have made them even better. Najee Marshall in particular has been amazing, providing great defense, and he's putting up 11.9 points per game on 55% shooting. Although his three-pointer hasn't been falling at a consistent rate this season, his ability to hit the longer range floaters and finish around the basket has been pretty impressive. Quentin Grimes, I thought, has also been pretty good, giving them another 8.7 points off the bench, but the question for him throughout his NBA career has been his three-point shot. But this season, he's shot 42% from beyond the arc. Even though Klay Thompson continues to not look fabulous, I'm still not all out on him. And even if he doesn't improve, it's not the end of the world, as they could always just swap him out in the starting lineup. Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving are the best offensive backcourt in the NBA right now. And if you ask Stan Van Gundy of NBA history, Irving is flirting with a 50-40-90 season, averaging 23.9 points on 50% shooting from the field, 47% from deep, and 88% from the free throw line. After a slower start to the season where he didn't look like his MVP best, Luka Doncic is back to that best player in the world type form. He's giving Dallas 28.9 points, 8.6 rebounds, 8.2 assists, and 2.1 steals on 46% shooting from the floor. In that recent game against Golden State, Dallas sent a message to the rest of the league, as powered by a 45-point triple-double from Luka, where he also chipped in 11 rebounds and 13 assists. They absolutely dominated one of the league's best defenses from start to finish. Luka continues to be a top 5 player in the association, and in my opinion will lead the Mavericks back to the top of the Western Conference before the playoffs begin. This prediction is a bit of a longer one, but I believe the Orlando Magic, fully healthy, will make it out of the first round of the playoffs and push their second round opponent to at least 6 games. It's incredibly unfortunate how Orlando have dealt with so many injuries this season, and after today's game they might have another to worry about, as Jalen Suggs went down with an ankle injury. However, it's the ones to Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner that are the most damaging. Starting with Banchero, he was playing at an MVP level before his injury, averaging 29 points a game, along with 8.8 rebounds and 5.6 assists on 50% shooting. Even though it was a short sample size, only playing in 5 games, he was still absolutely sensational in that time, even acting as the team's floor general, practically running their offense. So when he went down with an oblique injury, which is an incredibly rare injury for a basketball player, Franz Wagner had to step up, and he did, giving the Magic 26.1 points, 6 rebounds, 6.3 assists, and 1.8 steals on 46% shooting in the time without Banchero. However, he would strangely suffer the same fate, going down with an oblique injury as well. I can't even begin to explain to you guys how unlucky that is, but it leaves me wondering, if they could get back healthy before the postseason, which is a likely outcome, could they really do some damage in the playoffs? Now, I am fully aware that they're not both going to average these crazy numbers at the same time, as during those first 5 games when they were both on the court together, Wagner had to take a back seat, only averaging 17.8 points per game. But I did say this before, and I'll say it again. If Orlando could figure out a way to get Wagner more involved, whether that means Banchero sacrifices a little, it's going to do wonders for them when it comes to winning more games. Because when it's the Banchero show with Wagner a shell of himself, it makes them a lot easier to guard, knowing that the Magic want to go through the one guy. But if they could make both guys offensive weapons, similar to what the Boston Celtics do with Tatum and Brown, I believe an Eastern Conference Finals appearance isn't far off. But with limited time to gel when they both get back from their injuries, I'm not sure that this is the season where they're going to make a good push for the Eastern Conference Finals. But I believe that they're potentially good enough to get to that second round and make it very difficult for whoever they face. But these are just my takes. I don't normally make videos like this one, but let me know in the comment section below if you'd like to see a part 2 to this, or a different kind of video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments section below.